The Psychedelic Integration Coach and PsychedeLiA, Psychedelic Experience Integration, are a collective of professionals and peers interested in the potential psychological and spiritual healing properties of psychedelics. Our events are intended for the purpose of educating about mindful and safe integration of entheogenic experiences, offering emotional support, and creating meaningful connections between community members. Find more information at www.psychedelicintegrationcoach.com/events, and may you live that psychedelic feeling.
I'd like to introduce our speaker for tonight. Catherine Auman, a licensed marriage and family therapist, is a spiritual psychotherapist and director of the Transpersonal Counseling Center in Los Angeles, California, where one of the specialties is psychedelic integration. She has advanced training in traditional psychology as well as the wisdom traditions. Catherine lived for a year at the Osho ashram in India, a full-time immersion in Tantra meditation, and she studied and practiced Tantra, love, sex, intimacy, and seduction with numerous teachers. You can visit her online at catherineauman.com, and I'm sure she has cards and books and everything over there that has her website on it. And the books are for sale. You can get one of them's 10, one of them's 5?
15.
15, sorry. One of them's 10, one of them's 15, and you can get both of them for 20. And with that, I will turn things over to Catherine.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you, Tara.
You're welcome.
Hi, everyone. How many is this your first PsychedeLiA event? And how many of you have been to PsychedeLiA events before? Great. This is a great organization. All your ticket price tonight is going to support the organization. One thing I didn't hear is that they hold psychedelic integration groups all over the LA area, South Bay, Victorville, and you can look online, and those are open to everyone to go and just ask questions about psychedelic integration. Tantra and psychedelics. So as Tara said, I'm a licensed marriage and therapist. I have a private practice. I've been in practice for over 30 years. I've worked in all kinds of mental health, psychiatric hospitals, drug and alcohol treatment programs. My graduate work was done in transpersonal psychology. Who's heard of that? That's about right, about 3 or 4. Transpersonal psychology began in the 60s. Stan Grof was one of the first people who started that, along with Abraham Maslow. And Stan Grof is the one who had been doing LSD research for psychotherapy. He's a psychiatrist. And they were having very promising results. And then, of course, Prohibition started, and that research had to stop until MAPS has been working on legalized research to get psychotherapy and other substances legalized for use in psychotherapy. So transpersonal psychology is a combination of Western psychology and every other kind of psychology we looked into. So at that time, when I went in the 80s, we were studying psychedelic therapy, even though we were reading about it. We were reading about spirituality, higher states of consciousness, dream states, shamanic practices, all of this in addition to Western psychology. So that was my training. My own personal psychedelic experiences that I have a legitimate number of experiences. A lot of them were at Grateful Dead shows. And today people look down their nose and call that recreational, and we called it going to church. So I've spent over 30 years studying Tantra as well. That's not, I first read my first book in the 70s on Tantra. When I first heard that sex was spiritual, I went, yeah, something else going on there. That really makes sense to me. And I have been a disciple of a Tantra master, Osho. How many people know Osho? Okay, great. And Osho teaches a tantric worldview. We're going to get into that a little bit. And as Tara said, I lived for a year in the Osho ashram in India, and met Sel there, if you know Sel. And it was a full-time immersion in Tantra and meditation. I studied with Margot Anand there. I've studied with many of the many of the Tantra teachers. And I have an ongoing study of love, sex, intimacy, seduction, spirituality with numerous teachers. And now I'm doing some Tantra teaching, as I'll talk about in the end. So what does the word psychedelic mean? Mostly now the definition has to do with psychedelic drugs, because especially now with Michael Pollan's book, it's become rampantly in the mainstream interest, and the word has taken on that. But actually, according to the Cambridge Dictionary, it means any unusually strong experience of color, sounds, smell, taste, and touch, and other mental effects such as feelings of deep understanding or hallucination. So this could be, and you'll hear this in popular language. People go, yeah, man, it was psychedelic. How was the show? It was psychedelic. Versus, and that's not always necessarily relating to psychedelic drugs. Then we think about, why are sex and drugs linked? Why do we think sex, drugs, and rock and roll? Or what is this sex and drugs sort of, why do they go together? Well, both are condemned by society, right? Mainstream society looks down on drugs, except legal drugs, very into legal drugs, right? And very into any kind of sex that is not, it looks to me like any kind of sex that's not loving, they're really into. So women on billboards, or being very fascinated with all kinds of sexual abuses. This is all very interesting, but sex per se is condemned by society. Both are capable of inducing ecstasy and changing our reality. Sex and drugs both have this capacity for ecstatic states, and ecstasy can heal, as we know. Both are potentially about the divine, and both are used unconsciously by most people. So this everybody in this room has been attracted to the divine in drugs, in sex, I hope, or I would assume. And in the mainstream, most people are not using these as consciously as they could be used. Both have the capacity to free people, and society doesn't want free people. Free people can't be controlled. So if people are exploring their own minds, if people are staying home, one of my teachers, Peter Rengel, has a great quote in one of my books. He said, society is against love because if people are in love, they don't buy anything. They just like to stay home. And I asked a friend of mine who's been married for 25 years. I've never been married for 25 years. I said, is that true? He said, oh yeah, my wife and I have been married for 25 years. We're very happy. We work, we make food, we make love. We watch a little TV. That's about it. We don't really buy anything. So unhappy people will buy a whole lot more. Anxious people will buy a whole lot more stuff. So society has a vested interest, a consumer society has a vested interest in people not becoming free and not becoming happy. A fully sexual person cannot be controlled. If people are really fully vibrating, fully sexually alive, not frightened, nobody's going to tell them what to do. You can throw them in jail, they'll still be free. So you can see that these substances are linked as being dangerous to a society that wants to control people. So the popular psychedelic drugs, some of these may or may not be psychedelic. I just wanted to just run down the list and talk about their use, their potential use in as aphrodisiacs or sexually. I think we would all agree that the two DMTs don't really go with sex very much. Would everyone agree with that? Anybody had any great sexual experience on DMT? You have? Wow, I didn't expect that.
I had sex with God once.
Sex with God. Love it. Love it. Ayahuasca and San Pedro I put in the same category because they're very sensual. People often feel more embodied and feel like being close to other people's bodies. But I think there's something about the throwing up in a pail that's really not conducive to sex. And being in those big group rooms, at least not the way it's not attractive to me. Ketamine, I couldn't find any studies on this, and I don't have personal experience. I know club kids talk about having sex on ketamine, but it's not really well known. That's not what it's most well known for. LSD and psilocybin. So LSD, Timothy Leary famously said in his 1966 interview in Playboy magazine, LSD is the greatest aphrodisiac ever invented by man. Well, Dr. Leary is one of my personal heroes in life. I really love how Dr. Leary was a champion and really suffered for championing the rights of the individual to explore our own minds. But he also was not shy about hyperbole and promoting LSD and himself. So I think that LSD and psilocybin are, I think everyone knows, they're pretty much a crapshoot. You may have great sex on them, but you may also, in the middle of having the greatest sex of your life, become utterly fascinated by that spot on the wall. And that's great. That's just as interesting. So I think that people are lots of reports of people having great experiences on LSD and psilocybin. But again, they're not really predictable. MDMA is not technically a psychedelic, although it's an empathogen, although a lot of people put it in that category. We're going to talk more about MDMA later. And cannabis is not really a psychedelic, although some people experience psychedelic qualities on cannabis. Cannabis is well known as an aphrodisiac. People feel more sensual in their bodies. Again, you could be making love, or you could decide you'd rather just go for the Cheetos. So, again, it's all kind of a crapshoot. So, what I'd like you to do now is get in little groups of 3 or 4, and and when I ding this bell, we're ready to come back. I want you to get in little groups of 3 or 4. Make sure at least one person in your group. Thank you. Make sure at least one person in your group is somebody you haven't met yet, and discuss if you have ever experienced sex on psychedelics. Okay? If you could meet your neighbors and turn the chairs around. Okay, I want to hear everybody's story. No. Okay, so what is Tantra? This is a beautiful quote from Osho. Tantra is the science of transforming ordinary lovers into soulmates. And that is the grandeur of Tantra. It can transform the whole earth. It can transform each couple into soulmates. Tantra began in the Common Era 500 by a guy named Saraha. Saraha came from a wealthy family, had everything, was being offered the keys to the kingdom, and he rejected it all. He didn't want it. And he went and searched, this is a story like Buddha too, right? And he went to the marketplace, and he saw the Arrowsmith woman, who was a very famous figure in Tantra. He was of the high class, the Brahmins, and she was of the peasant class, and that was absolutely not done in India. She was an untouchable. And she was making arrows, but he could see there was something special about her. She was an enlightened woman. And he dropped everything and went and studied with the Arrowsmith woman, became her disciple, her student, her lover, and they moved to the crematorium where the dead bodies were being burned, and they lived there, made love there, and people would come and flock to this wild couple with this great energy. And I know for myself, I remember being at a party at the 80s, and there was this couple that radiated. And I went up to them, I said, "Who are you guys? What's going on? What do you guys do? What do you know?" They were Tantra people, and I wanted to know what that was. Osho says that Tantra is the philosophy, unlike the one I grew up in, which is that all is sacred. I grew up in a religion where this is sacred and this isn't. Anybody else grow up in that kind? And especially sex was not sacred. And so when everything's sacred in Tantra, the Tantric worldview, then sex would be sacred too, and that was not okay with the other type of religions. So it became, they're just about sex, but Tantra was never just about sex. It was about everything being sacred, including sex. And that sex can be a pathway to the divine and actually a way to increase love and the love between lovers. I think you'll see that Tantra is very much like a psychedelic worldview, which is one thing I want to share with you. So what we're going to do right now is an exercise, because Tantra is very much about the body is sacred. I first experienced my body being sacred on psilocybin. I was like, wow, God is in the body. It's not just something you read about in a book or do in church. It's like, oh my God, God is in the body. And Tantra is very much about being in the body. And in this culture, Western culture, most of us are not in our bodies. We have bodies, and most of us don't like our bodies very much. Bodies, especially women, we're taught to hate our bodies. Guys are getting that almost as much as women now. But we don't have the right body, we don't have the right stomachs, our boobs aren't right, the cocks aren't right, everything's not right. It's sort of this thing we carry around with us, and we try to make it into something else. We try to make our bodies into something else. I had been a dancer, I'd studied ballet, I did yoga, and it was only when I was at the ashram I realized I've been doing all this stuff to my body, I've never actually been in it. Tantra is about being in the body. So we're going to do an exercise now about coming into our bodies. So please put your things down, get into a comfortable position, a little meditation. If you're willing, if you want to just sit, that's fine too. And for those of you that do yoga, if you want to just settle into a yoga posture, nobody gets extra points for sitting very stiffly and holding their breath. You get extra points for being really relaxed. Isn't that silence beautiful? So if you want to lower your eyes, close your eyes. I personally don't like to close my eyes when I'm with people I don't know, but if you're comfortable doing that, that's great. You can just lower them so you're not looking around. And first, without trying to change anything, notice how you're breathing. The contemporary, conventional culture keeps us breathing very shallowly and very rapidly. Just notice that. There's nothing wrong with that. We need to breathe that way to not take in everything, all the traffic, everything that's so difficult. Just notice it. And now, take a deep breath. Pretty much everyone knows that to take a deep breath is a way to calm yourself. You'll say that to a friend, hey, chill, take a deep breath. Let's take a deep breath, fill up the rib cage. And let's hear some exhales. Excellent, let's do that again. Now I want you to really scan for how that feels differently, taking a deep breath than it did when you had your day breath on. Just scan. If you feel different in your shoulders, your chest, just notice if you notice any difference. All right, so let's put our hands on our rib cage and let's notice that deep breath fills up the ribs, and let it go again. And let's move our hands down to our bellies. And what we're going to do now is fill our bellies up with air. Does that actually literally happen? Not really, because obviously it only goes into our rib cage. But in yoga, we do belly breathing. What I envision to help me with this is I envision the air going down my spine, which of course it doesn't really do, but I think of it going down my spine to my tailbone, puffing out my belly when it's there, and then my belly collapses as the breath goes back up the spine and out the nose, out the mouth. So let's practice bringing the air all the way down into the belly, puff the belly out, and exhale, and let me hear you. Great. All right. Let's do that again. Into the belly. Just feel your belly. Most of us are not too fond of our bellies. We think our bellies are too flabby, or we don't have abs, or we just really try to hold it in. See somebody cute, you try to hold in your belly. But actually a really relaxed person has a relaxed belly. Just breathing. And notice that belly is sitting on a seat. Feel there where you're touching the seat. Feel your legs coming down to the ground. Notice that you're rooted here safely. In this moment, you may open your eyes and somebody may not feel safe, may or may not, but in this private space, with you against the ground, there's safety in it. Let's bring that breath all the way down again. So not only are we going to bring the breath down to our tailbone, we're going to bring it down to the genitals. Some people in this room have never breathed into their genitals before. They're not really getting a whole lot of air. I want you to take your mind's eye and drop it down inside your belly and take a look around. Take a look around inside your belly. Look where you're sitting against the chair. Look at your belly that you usually maybe don't like too much. Look at your belly button. Look at your genitals from the inside. Just look around privately in your own sacred space. This is a beautiful place to make love from. Inside in your own sacred space. Let's bring the awareness up just a little bit to the navel on the inside. Let's bring it up to the solar plexus, which I didn't know what that was. It's right a little bit below where the ribs come together in the middle. It's our power center. Breathe in there. Let's take a look around inside our lungs. Inside. And come to your heart and notice if your heart is still broken. Everyone in this room has had their heart broken. Every single one of us. Every single person you meet has a broken heart. Feel the state of your heart. Is it healing? Is it still broken? Is there a wall around it? Breathe in air into it. Deep breath, give it some healing breath. Feel the vulnerability in the heart. A lot of people are afraid to love again. Notice that when you breathe, if the air is bypassing the heart or going through it. A lot of people breathe in a pattern that goes around the heart rather than through the heart. It's a self-protection. Who can blame them? Bring your mind's eye up to your throat, inside your throat. And look at all the things you've been afraid to say in your life that have not passed through this barrier. All the times you wanted to tell someone you loved them, all the times you wanted to say something and just be heard, all the times you wanted to stand up and be strong and you just weren't able to yet. Notice if there's a barrier. For most people, probably for everyone, there's a strong barrier there at the throat of all the things that have not been said, all the things that weren't welcome. In the family we grew up in school, at our job, with our lovers. All those words, thoughts, feelings, vulnerabilities were not welcome, so they stuck here in the throat. Look around inside. Look at where, when you're inside, look at the layer of skin that surrounds your insides. And feel where that layer of skin touches the outside air. That's all that separates you from everything outside. Feel that skin. It's such a thin membrane. And notice that if you've been able to breathe and be in the body, the mind is blessedly silent. Osho used to talk about walking around as though we had our heads cut off, headless people. It's a beautiful thing to be in silence inside our bodies and not have to think. Some people would call this meditation. We can live embodied like this. It can be our own secret. You could be sitting in a board meeting and nobody has to know that you're just enjoying being inside your own self, breathing, feeling what it's like to feel the chair, feel the air, the exquisite pleasure of the air going in and out of your nostrils. Oh, you can just get high just from that, if you really notice. You can just get high. It could be orgasmic just to sit and breathe. But whoever tells us that? This beautiful state can be practiced, can be cultivated. In Tantra, we try to become more, to remember this more. We try more and more to remember, I am also my body. I'm not just a head, because the mind is thinking. And the body is like a little dog that's so happy to be alive. There was a great meme on Facebook, I don't know if you saw it. It had a guy and his dog, and the guy had his calendar, and he had all the things he had to do, and the dog had a calendar, and it said July 11th. The dog was like, "This is the best day of my life." July 12th, "This is the best day of my life." July 13th. This is the best day of my life. When we center in without thinking, this is the best day of my life. But the mind will tell us it's not. So when you're ready, knowing that you can come back here at any time, and that if you choose to take this on as a practice, it will enrich and deepen. This is being holistic. This is being body and mind. So when you're ready, please come back to the room. Bring in your body with you. Hi, welcome back. So we're going to shift here back to the mind, but I'm going to remind you, are you in your bodies, okay? So let's take a look at conventional sex versus tantric sex. Conventional sex is goal-oriented. The goal is the orgasm. And everything is supposed to be moving in that direction. So you get these little formulas like foreplay, she comes, he comes, it's over. Maybe you get a little hug afterwards. That's the formula for conventional sex. And that's better than when the formula was no foreplay, he comes, it's over. But it's still goal-oriented and formulaic. Tantric sex has no goal. There is no goal. That formula is not interesting or the point at all. Conventional sex is orgasm focused. It's over when the man comes, and women are now under pressure. Now women have terrific performance pressure that they must come many times. I asked a young man, a pickup artist friend of mine, what made a woman good in bed? He says the number of times she can come. That's how he was measuring how good a woman is in bed. In tantric sex, orgasm is not the goal, nor is it sought, nor is it particularly welcome, because orgasm means sex is over. And if you don't have orgasms, it's possible for you to go into orgasmic waves. So some of you in this room know, and some of you haven't heard yet, that for men, ejaculation and orgasm are not necessarily the same thing. And conventional sex is telling you that they are the same thing. And men can have multiple orgasms without any ejaculation. And women also are told that it's great for us to have as many orgasms as possible. Women also lose power from orgasm. Because you notice that after you come, you wish you could get it over with because you're done also. You notice that often when you have orgasms, and well, that's a whole story. Conventional sex is over quickly. The average length of time of sex worldwide, I don't know how they get these statistics, but is 3.5 minutes. And tantric sex often lasts for hours and hours and hours because it doesn't finish. Conventional sex goes downhill with time. So everybody's pretty clear in the conventional world that couples have great sex at the beginning and then they don't. They get bored. That's pretty much everyone agrees with that, believes that that's inevitable, and that you're going to have to start getting into role play and S&M and stuff to spice things up. If you want to do that, that's fine, but I'm just saying that's the idea, is that you're going to have to add a lot of other things to keep spice it up, because it's not in and of itself going to stay interesting with one person. Or you need to open up your relationship, or all kinds of prescriptions. But in tantric sex, it's always new. It's always new. It's always in this moment. It's going to become clearer as we go along in this talk what that actually means. Conventional sex is always kind of naughty. There's always kind of this thing from our upbringing that there's something kind of wrong with it, or it's kind of not really right, or whatever. And it's sacred in tantric sex. Sex is sacred. It's a sacred sharing between people. It's about coming. Conventional sex and tantric sex is about the present moment. So as we were in our bodies in this moment, being present, not thinking about getting anywhere, not trying to become a great person sitting here in my body, not trying to have great skills, just being and breathing. This is how we approach lovemaking. Being in a body, breathing in this moment, rather than the formula of trying to do these skills so we can get somewhere. In conventional sex, there are right ways to do it and wrong ways to do it, and you're supposed to teach your partner the right way to do it. And I notice a lot of clients that are coming to my office are learning about sex from porn, and they're coming in and they're very upset because their partners don't act like porn stars. They don't make love the way porn stars do. The women don't come immediately. The women aren't shaped like porn stars. The men are being taught to be very mechanical. So there's right ways in the conventional world, and then there's ways that aren't right. And I was just reading ESO, which is a book written in the 80s. Does anybody remember that book, Extended Sexual Orgasm? It's a very conventional sex book about the whole purpose of sex there is to train your partner to mechanically make you come exactly how you like to come. It's like, wow. Another thing about conventional sex is it declines with age. Guys, you're supposed to be in your sexual prime at what, 15? Isn't that right? Isn't that what they teach us? Women are supposed to be in our sexual prime at 30. What happens with the rest of our lives? Were your parents actually doing it? Oh no, probably not. Old people don't do it. But with tantric sex, it only gets better as you develop, as you mature, as your consciousness rises. Sex becomes better and better and better and better and better. Who's talking about that in the conventional world? The conventional sex world doesn't even hold that out as a possibility. I've seen tantrikas, a lot of the great tantric teachers are in their 70s, 80s, because it keeps going on when you're not into performance. Mostly conventional sex is separate from love. I just realized about a year ago that there's a lot more sex in the media now than there used to be, but very little of it is between people who love each other. It's almost always quick, dramatic, illicit, kinky, and so on. It's really become taboo to have sex. Sex is no longer taboo, but it's taboo if it's about love, if it's sacred. Sacred sex is taboo in the mainstream culture. And in tantric sex, sex equals love is an expression of love. It's a conversation about love, a wordless conversation. Everybody check and see if you're in your bodies. This has been a lot of mental stuff. Bring your breath in. All the way down. Let's have awareness of our skin, our feet, our genitals, our breath, all at the same time. It's beautiful, huh? It's great. So there's a book called Transcendent Sex by Jenny Wade. And Jenny Wade is a transpersonal researcher, PhD, teaches at some prestigious university. And she did actual research on people who were reporting, ordinary people, not necessarily Tantra people, who were reporting what we would call psychedelic experiences with that definition that we used earlier. And so she started collecting data, doing interviews on the types of experiences people were having through sex that people aren't really, in the mainstream, are not talking about. And here's her findings. What she would call transcendent sex is when an altered state overtakes one or both persons. Some sort of altered state. Mind-shattering, life-changing, reality-altering. This is through sex. A pervasive sense that this comes from a divine source, this transcendent experience. These experiences in her research seem to involve relationship. It seemed to come when there's a relationship between the partners. It's less likely, people have great sex on one-night stands, but these transcendent experiences seem to come from something about the quality of the relationship. And the ecstasies people reported were more powerful than orgasm. People reported fireworks. That's kind of cliche, but it was actual fireworks. People reported energy, light, merging into one with the partner. Some people reported the appearance of gods and goddesses. Could be some of the tantric gods and goddesses, Shiva, Shakti, Krishna, who's blue, who knows. Shape-shifting, people experience themselves turning into animals, turning into other beings. Channeling or being possessed by entities. People experience this during sex. Cosmic journeys that leave the body behind. Is this sounding psychedelic? People experience time traveling. People experience past lives. People experience being in nothingness. Divine union. I want to share a couple experiences that Greg and I had. Greg's my partner, Greg Lawrence, who leads psychedelic integration groups. It was an experience of going through, we'd been making love for several hours and going through these rings, going through door after door after door, CGI rings of a blasted star. That's very poetic. Initiations. There seem to be guardians at the gate making sure who goes through these higher levels of initiation and being invited to higher realms. I didn't actually see these rings, but I have seen the rings. To me, they looked like, those old-fashioned, like in cartoons, the lighthouses with the rings that went out, like that. That's what I've seen of this similar type of thing. I couldn't figure out how to squash down this slide, so I just wrote everything. In the moment I saw this, I started getting this pulsating thing, because in this kind of sex you really have to be in this moment. And all the spiritual teachers are talking about being in this moment. Meditation is about being in this moment, right? How many people practice this meditation, this mindfulness of the moment? Okay? So in Tantric Sex, we try to practice this. We meditate while we make love. So we're trying to be in this moment and not thinking about, can we come in the future, or what did I have for lunch? Or anytime the mind wanders, which is the nature of the mind, we try to come back to the present moment. So I had heard this for years and had been, trying to get my mind to be in the present moment, noticing I'm a lot happier when I'm in the present moment. But what I discovered in Psychedelic Sex was I got this huge image of the cosmos. This is the Milky Way tipped on its side. And I saw that it was a yoni, a vulva. And in that moment, I saw that if we're totally in the present moment, what all the spiritual teachers are teaching us is that it's not just the present moment is not just a great place to hang out. It's actually, if you can actually be in it, it's a psychedelic, it's another realm. That's what they're pointing to. And you walk, actually, if you're present moment, if you can totally be in it and your mind isn't in the future or the past, it's actually a higher state of consciousness. It's not just better, it's another realm. I'm still as blown away as I was then. So in that heightened sense, I could see that the present moment is psychedelic. It is another consciousness. It's just that we're never in it, because our minds are always thinking. So we're never actually in what actually is a higher consciousness. We can't, it's like that thing about the fish can't see the water. If I'm in the exact present moment while we're pleasuring each other, it goes to another dimension. But only if you're in the gap where it is exactly present. If you start thinking about anything, e.g. I might have a thought, oh, this is how I used to feel in India, then it's over. The mind starts doing its thing again. So these are just some personal psychedelic experiences that we had. So what I'd like you to do is get in another group of 3 or 4, different group this time. You can have some people the same, but some people who are people you haven't met yet, and talk about, have you ever had a psychedelic experience while making love? Please meet your new friends. And when I ding the bell, come back. I know some of you guys are in love already, but you have to tear yourselves away. Let's check and see if we're in our bodies. Check and see if we're bringing our bodies with us. So easy not to. We've been programmed for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years not to live in our bodies. Let's just be in our bodies for this moment, in this safe place. Bringing our bodies with us. Okay, so we're going to talk about MDMA. In a class of its own. MDMA is famous for pathogen, opening people's hearts. It potentially opens the heart the way other drugs open the mind and spirit. Potentially can increase empathy. Pathogen. We love everybody. Possibly can create bonding, intimacy, deeper levels of intimacy. May reduce performance anxiety. Partners may be better able to communicate, although what is not spoken will harsh the buzz. So, all of these things are true if there's not a lot of junk between you and your partner. But taking MDMA together will bring up all the stuff that's in the way of the bonding, the empathy, the performance anxiety, the unspoken stuff. And sometimes people don't even get high. Sometimes it creates conflict. When you're supposed to be having this great heart-opening experience, and how come that's not happening? So maybe it's happening. Maybe it's easier to love strangers at a rave or a festival on MDMA. It's fun, kissing strangers, the whole lip thing becomes more sensitive, feel this humanitarian love. For couples, it's, so because of that quality, that it's potentially a heart opener, and it's, this unfinished business will come up, it's been used in couples therapy. Because of this ability to, the people want to connect, but there's what's keeping us from connecting. So let me give you an example of a couple I worked with. You come in, you do a full assessment like you would do with any other couple. What are the issues? What are the communication issues? What's the unfinished business? What are we fighting about, not fighting about? What's happening sexually, and so on. And then during the session itself, the therapist can figure out how to facilitate with what's going on. Some of that may be, who knows what that couple needs. It could be speaking about some unspoken stuff, speaking about the performance anxiety, speaking about, I'm still mad about that time with your mother, speaking about, I'm afraid to be close. One couple she was freezing cold the whole time, and he was saying, I'm just sick of listening to her babbling all the time, which I think was pretty horrible for her to hear. And when they were on the MDMA and there was that softness happening, he was able to see that that babbling was just her attempt to share her life with him. And he was able to open up to that in a way he'd never been able to do just on a rational, trying to talk about that. Just trying to say, hey, she's just trying to communicate. But when his heart was open in that expanded place, he could feel the love that was coming from her babbling. Then on a MDMA couples therapy would follow up on the other end with, here's some what came out of that session, here's what you can actually take with you, perhaps do another session down the road, but able to then work more from what was learned during that expanded place and to actually taking it into it. This particular couple that I'm reporting on months later was saying that the benefits were still there from that one session. So this kind of therapy can be really powerful for couples therapy because of what it's not supposed to do. Because it's not doing what it's supposed to do. That's what I want to say. It's supposed to be making everybody just love and joy and freedom, but it's actually bringing up what's in the place of that love, joy, and freedom. And that, for all of us on a spiritual path, is where the work is, right? What's in the way of love, joy, and freedom, that's what I have to get to work on. And that is part of psychedelic integration as well, right? It's like whatever came up during that experience, I have to get to work on the stuff that's in the way of love, joy, and freedom. MDMA can be a teacher for psychedelic sex. Again, because of what you can't do. So you look on the forums and you'll hear guys complaining that they can't orgasm. Well, that's the point. That's a good teacher. Or they can't get hard. Well, how can you make love when you're not hard? You can. Can't orgasm. So that can be a very beautiful teacher if you understand that that's not wrong. It's wrong in conventional sex. Nothing can happen if you can't orgasm, can't get hard, women can't orgasm, all this stuff, then something's wrong in conventional sex. You're not good enough. But at MDMA can be a teacher of how can we have beautiful love, pleasuring, intimacy, connection without conventional sex. I personally learned to breathe. MDMA, when having sex on MDMA, taught me a certain type of breathing started happening that I've been able to take back into my life when I'm not on the substance. And that breathing has stayed with me, deepening my sexuality ever since. It can create these new neuronal pathways in the brain by experiencing things you've never experienced with a partner before, ways to breathe, ways to make love, ways to touch, ways to be intimate, ways to have your heart open, ways to communicate. These can start to be opened through these kinds of experiences and then be taken out. This heart opening, some people have never experienced their heart as open because, as we talked about before, our hearts have been broken. We're afraid to open them up again. This type of substance taken in the right environment can really help us experience that. What if it was safe enough to love again? What if it was safe enough to open my heart wider than it's ever been open? What if love is limitless? What if the love that I've been feeling is only a small part and it could be so big? Okay, so how do you invite psychedelic sex into your life? Let's see if we're in our bodies. That's the first step. Breathe into your body. That might have triggered some stuff for some people about hearts. So breathe deeply. Triggering is the point. So if we want to start a practice of inviting psychedelic sex into our life, we first would want to choose a partner we can trust. And for some of us, that's harder than it sounds. I didn't know how to do that for a really long time. And clear your relationship. Anything that is not talked about is going to come up in the way of making love, either conventional sex or psychedelic sex or tantric sex. Everything unspoken is still hanging there in the energy field. Every past resentment. You know, when I was in graduate school to become a marriage and family therapist, they gave us this analogy, you may have heard it, where every time you don't finish an argument, it gets stuck in the backpack. You start carrying it, and another one, you get it in the backpack, and another one, until finally this backpack is so heavy, you're just weighted down with all this unspoken stuff. And then when you have a fight, you take the backpack, you throw all that stuff on the table. Right? Anybody relate to that? So all of that stuff can be cleared. It's a beautiful process to be with someone where you have an agreement to clear all this stuff until it's finished, so that it's not in the way of making love, it's not in the way of intimacy, because it's actual. I'm sure it's not actually physical, but it is physical. It's actually has weight to it. All this unfinished stuff, unfinished cycles, unfinished business carries weight and gets in the way of intimacy, freedom, etc. Cultivate an attitude of gratitude and devotion to your partner. Your partner in this moment, even if you're not going to be together for the rest of your lives, this is your lover in this moment. You are my lover in this moment. I used to practice this when I was single. I used to go get those $25 Chinese foot massage. Anybody else into those? They're cheap enough you can get them every week, right? And I used to go, and I was really touch-starved because I had been single for a while. And I would practice as the guy's touching me in the group. You know, there's nothing weird going on. I would just practice. This is my lover in this moment. This is my lover in this moment. I used to practice that on dates. I'll probably never see this guy again, but in this moment, this is my lover. Right now, everyone in this room is your lover. And we're grateful for that. Have plenty of time. You know, later on, after you are into tantric sex, quickies become quite miraculous, but when you're learning, you need to have a few hours available, a weekend, an afternoon. You can't be trying to get it over with, because trying to get it over with is a conventional mindset. You want to be able to try to be in a timeless space. So you want to, just like with any psychedelic, you want to allot the amount of time that it takes. Setting, all this. You need to have enough time. Most of us know if you're going to do LSD, you need a certain amount of time. If you're going to do MDMA, you need a certain amount of time. If you're going to do ayahuasca, you need the weekend, etc. You need a certain amount of time. Same thing if you're going to invite psychedelic sex into your life. You need to make, you want to be in a sacred space. Same thing with psychedelics, right? You want to make your bedroom a sacred place. I was on a podcast, and this lovely couple were interviewing me, and the guy goes, I should probably take that stack of papers out of the bedroom. Like, yeah, probably a good idea. So whatever that means to you, having some beautiful art, some of us need to buy some new sheets, get some candles, whatever that means to us. This is our sacred space where we connect. Give up goals. We're going to not even have goals to have psychedelic experience. We're just going to be. We're going to be together. That's what we're going to do. We're not going to try to do anything or make anything happen. We're going to invite. We're going to meditate and be in the present moment together in our bodies. Focus awareness inside your own body or where your partner is touching you. Usually in conventional sex, we're so busy hoping our touch is stimulating the other person. I remember in the ashram, we did this experience. We were all blindfolded, and we were just wandering around, and I accidentally touched this guy's penis, and I thought, I have never touched a penis without trying to make something happen before. It's amazing. To just touch a body. I actually touched someone's penis. I'm sorry, Greg. Anyway, it was beautiful to just not be trying to make, I realized that I'd always been trying to make something happen. And in Tantric Sex, we're not trying to make anything happen. Focus, aware, oh yeah. And perhaps you want to make a playlist, just like you would for a psychedelic experience. I have a playlist on YouTube. You're welcome to check it out. It's always constantly morphing and changing, but there's some like 6-hour beautiful music on there that invokes a sacred space and doesn't draw too much attention to itself. Most music that I find on YouTube that is supposedly for sex and is erotic is drawing your attention to it. And I think what invokes tantric, the sacred, is more devotional music, not drawing your attention towards it. Be in your body, not your head. Give up the idea of foreplay. You see, this whole idea of foreplay means that it's before something else. In tantric sex, there isn't anything before the big event. It's all the big event. You might do that little formula in the opposite direction. That little formula of foreplay, she comes, he comes, it's over. You might do that whole thing in the opposite direction, or mix it up, or not even do it. Who knows? Enjoy protracted pleasuring. Go with whatever arises. Now this, for me, is a constant meditation. And again, I practice this when I go for my Chinese foot massage. I used to be very sensitive about, because I'm thin, I used to be very sensitive. It felt like they were always touching me too hard. And I don't advocate anyone not say something when they're being hurt, but I started experimenting with, is that really too hard if I relax into it? Is it? If it is, then we should say something to our partner. We should say, ouch. But we're taught in conventional sex, we should always be saying all the time, I like this and I like that, and I don't like this and I don't like that. It's very mental. It takes us out of our bodies and into our heads. So what if we experiment with being what's actually arising? Instead of worrying if I like that touch of his or not, how about if I am with it instead of my mind going for or against it? Lots of praise. It's beautiful. This is your lover, your beloved. In this moment, you may never see them again, but how beautiful to be with this divine lover in this moment. What a beautiful body you have. What a beautiful touch you have. Don't we love to hear this? Don't we love to praise our partners? It's just divine. My only intention is to be fully present. And lots of eye gazing. So what we're going to do now, I want you to very quickly, because we're almost out of time, grab one other person and face each other, please. Quick. Please turn your chairs to face each other. Let's have some quiet, please. Check to see if you're in your body. Check with your partner if it's okay to share an eye gaze with each other. If it's okay with you, give a nod. We're going to silently look into this other person's soul and share our soul for 1 minute. We used to do this in India for 20 minutes. We'd all be crying like babies. Okay, 1 minute. And please, namaste your partner, which means the divine in me sees the divine in you. You guys look so beautiful. All right, psychedelic sex, the timings. What we have noticed, I haven't read this anywhere, but what we have noticed is it takes about 45 minutes for an hour for the mind to stop thinking. And this is when you're trying to be in the moment. So most sex takes about 20 minutes or whatever. The mind never stops thinking. You keep trying to be in the present moment. You'll start noticing, oh my God, my mind is finally silent. And I was reading someone the other day who said in Buddhist meditation, it takes about 45 minutes for the mind to finally stop chattering. So I'm sure there's a correlation there. After about 2 hours, we notice certain phenomena. After 3 hours, there's a heightening of the psychedelic phenomena. After a certain amount of time, the bodies start making love by themselves. You are not doing it anymore. The bodies are making love and they won't stop. It's an amazing phenomena. 6 to 10 hours is possible, a whole weekend. Stan Grof, I mentioned him early at the beginning. He was one of the founders of transpersonal psychology. He was the guy doing the psychedelic research. He was in a tantric partnership with his wife Christina for many, many years as they did research. He also invented holotropic breath work. He says in oceanic sex, which is his word for this, the base model for sexual interaction with another organism is not that of a liberating discharge and release after a period of strenuous effort and struggle, conventional sex, right? But that of a playful and mutually nourishing flow and exchange of energies resembling a dance. The aim is to experience the loss of one's own boundaries, a sense of fusion and melting with a partner into a state of blissful unity. And to prove the point that sex goes on and gets better and better, Christina died and Stan Grof was in his 80s and he remarried another woman. Okay, what are you guys going to do with this information? Is this going to be interesting intellectual stuff? Put it in your file cabinet, or are you going to go where you've not gone before? Get some guidance and training. There's lots of people out there teaching stuff. Oops, it's going backwards. I do some stuff. I have a monthly workshop for singles that I teach at Liberate Hollywood. It's a 2-hour workshop, first Saturdays of the month. I have an upcoming full-day Tantra workshop September 29th. I do couples therapy, including the type mentioned earlier, individual and couples counseling, tantric coaching, and so forth. I'm repeating this talk if you know someone who wants to come, or if you want to come again, Friday, August 11th at Liberate Hollywood. And here's how you can stay in touch, and I hope you will. Namaste. Do you have time for any questions, or are we done?
I was going to say we've got about maybe, depending on how long you guys want to like hang out and socialize, we've got the space until 9:30, and then I have to clean everything up. So we've got maybe like 5-10 minutes for a question, something like that.
Okay. And my books are available over there. This one is the Tantric Dating about the workshop for singles, and it's getting some rave reviews, if I do say so myself. This book is has some articles on Tantra in it and sexuality, but it's a little bit of everything. You don't have to commit to reading a book. It's a little short awakenings. So this is usually 10, this is usually 15. You can have both for 20 tonight. So, questions?
For the Tantra workshop, requirement to have a partner, or?
No, no. It's for couples and singles.
That's in September?
Yes, end of September. So all this is on my website. It'll also be on Meetup and on Eventbrite. Okay.
Can you speak a little about practicing Tantra by yourself?
Practicing Tantra by yourself is really a matter of continuing this process of, am I embodied? Am I at war with my body? Am I breathing? Am I able to be sensually present? And like I said, I did a lot of exercises on my own, like going and getting massage and noticing, if I were with a lover right now, would I be arguing with this touch? You know, would I be able to receive it? What's going on with me and my sensuality? I would practice Tantra by, this is what my book for singles is about, is I practice Tantra by sitting with potential dates and going, what's in my way of being able to love this person in this moment? Because right now the divine has brought me this person to be my perfect love in this moment, whether I ever see him again or not. And I went on 150 first dates, so most of them the answer was no, but can I in this moment be present and loving towards this person? What is in my way of being in this present moment? What is my mind throwing up as the reasons I can't love this person? That's going to come up in my future relationships. So I was preparing for the lover in these ways, these tantric ways. You can read all kinds of books about doing all these kind of sexual exercises with yourself, and maybe that's a good idea, but I think taking the focus into, am I embodied? When I'm making love, am I going to be just going for technique, or am I going to be able to actually be present with this other person and receive their touch, receive the love that comes through their hands, their skin? Yeah.
What's your experience? How many times have you used MDMA, and would you say there's a limitation on how often, so it doesn't become dependent?
What's your experience?
Turn it around. Well, I discovered it last year, and it was an incredible heart-opening experience. Had a breakup, which was pretty rough, and then actually that helped me to reopen again. I find if I keep it to about once a month, it's not too often. It seems like a good habit.
Yeah, I think it depends on the person. My brain chemistry is quite sensitive, and I probably couldn't recover enough to do it every month, because the whole serotonin imbalance and stuff takes me a while to get over it. So I don't know if you're using it in a sacramental way, if abuse would even be possible. I don't know. I think it would depend on what one is using it for, and is it in the way of really relating. For me, it was more like, let's learn these things, and then let's put them into our love life. Let's see what the teaching element of MDMA is, and then let's, just like with psychedelics, like we don't want to do them all the time. We want to, some of us do, but I think the point is to learn from them and then incorporate that into our life. I would say the same thing about MDMA. It's like, how can I learn to be approach the world in a more expanded state, a more loving state, a more empathic state. I don't know about you, but my goal in life is to have my heart wide open for everyone. I've got a ways to go, but I'm working on it. So I think that those states can help us, show us, just like any kind of psychedelic shows us where it's possible to evolve to.
Yeah, exactly.
And what's in my way of that? Okay, so you might have this heart-opening experience on MDMA, and the next day you're like pissed off at these stupid drivers in traffic, and you're like, that's what's in my way. Right? It's like, there I am again, myself. I aspire to be compassionate to all, and here's my stuff. And then work with that. Work with that. That's a spiritual path, right? It's like, there's the taste. Here I am, human being. Here I am with my partner. We have this beautiful expanded state on the MDMA, and then the next day we have the stuff to talk about that we're not talking about, that came up maybe during that journey. The work goes on, just like all kinds of integration from all kinds of drugs. It's the same, that the integration process is what's important afterwards. How do I bring these gifts of this drug into my into being me, into living my life, into interacting with everyone else on this planet. Mm-hmm.
The same question I have, that I realize that while I'm on something and I analyze a lot, I see, oh, this is what's on my way. This is what's really stopping me from what I want to get or how I want to be. But then once I'm off, it's like it's not applying to my life. It's like I don't remember. It's not that I don't remember, but I'm talking about weed right now because it really helps me. I'm very reactive. Weed gets me balanced, and I don't get upset as much. I'm easy to talk to, and I understand it. It's not like I'm delusional. But once I'm sober, I'm back to the way I am. And even though I remember that, hey, when I'm on weed, I'm calmer. I'm more sensitive towards other people. I'm relaxed and not aggressive. Why don't I do it when I'm not high?
Exactly. So this is the integration process, which gets left out a lot, right? It's like, what do I do with these awarenesses? Sometimes we go to therapy. Sometimes we get coaching. Sometimes we find some kind of teacher that can teach us about exactly how to do that. Integration specialists, or some kind of, there's a lot of techniques now or apps that you can get. How do I get more chill? How do I take that with me? So the high from the drug is only the beginning. It's then exactly what you're talking about, that constant struggle to how do I become this person I want to be. I tell my patients it's the pressure of a coal becoming a diamond.
It sounds frustrating.
Is it frustrating? It's frustrating for everyone.
But you can be that when you're high, and you cannot be.
You can, though. It takes a lot of work to get there, and the work is worth it. You can. That's the taste for where you're going. You have that experience because you see where you're going. That's your gift. That's where you want to be. And you keep struggling with the frustration. That's a good thing. It doesn't feel good. But that frustration is what keeps you moving towards becoming this person who's more compassionate, more loving, more chill, all these things that we want to be, that these drugs give us the glimpse of. Yes, Matt.
So I'm just thinking about balance here. So you painted one side as conventional sex, the other side is tantric sex, and there's expectations on, or ideas on both sides. So how do you avoid a possible trap of the expectations of tantric sex becoming like an interjection, let's say, you know, where if you're not achieving these expectations of long-term, you know, sex over multiple hours, you know, what's basically the middle sound like also? Is
Well,
there a middle?
I don't think it's an either or. I think it's a worldview of, I'm not trying to achieve all that stuff. If it happens, great. But I'm not trying, we're just being here together in this moment. So I don't think it's either we're trying to come really quickly 5 times, or we're trying to make love for 14 hours and see what happens. It's more like, are we having a goal to do something? That's, to me, those would be the same thing, not either or. In both of them, we're having sex with a goal orientation. And the tantric / psychedelic sex / transcendent sex is, we drop those goals to do anything other than be.
And that being can be for whatever that shows up as.
Sometimes you just go have lunch.
Right.
Sometimes you're making love and all of a sudden you just go get something to eat, and that's part of the making love. That's what's happening in that moment. So I would say that's not an either or, those are both the same mindset. And it's possible that, yes, it's very possible that at certain points in your journey, you would become goal-oriented about tantric sex. There's a lot of people who teach goal-oriented tantric sex. They're trying to have orgasms that last a lot longer and so on. So there is that mindset out there. But what Osho taught, what I teach, is we just drop all that. It's sex as a meditation. Being in the moment, not trying to get anywhere. Yes?
What do you do, I'm asking like personally, what do you do if you have like a time constraint? Like, you know, you want to have sex, but you only have an hour.
There's nothing wrong with having sex for an hour, Not trying to say that.
Oh, wait, no, that was my question. Like,
That sounds great.
you approach it differently. Well, let's say, yeah, like you approach it differently or
Just be in the moment for an hour. I'm just saying these higher transcendent things often, not always, take longer to have, but it doesn't mean you should only have sex when you have 3 or 4 hours. It means you can have a delightful time with somebody for 15 minutes in the car. But these higher states often come from being able to be relaxed with no time constraint. Yes?
If sex is really primal and raw and sweaty and human and fast, and there's some tension, is there any way that it could be considered tantric?
Of course, that would be happening in the moment. That would be what is happening in the moment. That would be great. Thank you, everyone. Oh, do one more? Yes?
It seems like there's a lot of relatedness between mindfulness meditation practice and taking that into the sexual space. It's kind of what I'm hearing. Can you speak a little more to that?
I see similarities because it is about, mindfulness is about being mindfulness in this present. So Osho said the best sex happens through with meditators, okay? Because there's a practice of, like we were talking about as a single person, you practice being in the present moment. Mindfulness would be one way to do that. I don't actually personally sit down and do that, but as I go about my day, I'm constantly reminding myself to be present, 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 present. Come back when I can wake up and remember. So mindfulness practice could be a great way to expand your practice, expand towards becoming a tantric lover. Does that answer your question? You have something else? Oh, okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Namaste.